Our big stat is brought to you by Gatorade, taking us back to Ohio State's win over Purdue. Quite a debut for Jake Diebler as the interim coach for the Buckeyes. Led them to their first win over a top 5 team in more than 2 years. And how about this? Diebler, the first head coach since 1999 to defeat a top 5 team in his first career game as a head coach. Matt Doherty was the last to do it back in 1999 when he led Notre Dame to a win over, coincidentally, Ohio State. Jake Diebler joins us now for our big interview. Coach, congratulations on this win. There is clearly talent on this team, and I know you've recognized that all year, and we've certainly talked a lot about it. Why do you think it finally came together in the way that it did yesterday?
Well, I think there's certainly when you're faced with adversity, which, this week's been really tough. We all love Holt, and our players do, our staff does, but, we were forced to come together at a level unlike really anything we had all year. So when you do that and you get guys, really, really pulling for each other and putting, their teammate above all else, I think that you see a result like that. You see at least maybe not even a result like that, but you see effort, togetherness, like you saw during that game for us. So I was really proud of them for that.
Take us through this whole day here. I mean, it's your first time as a head coach. So I've got to believe there's a lot of nerves and anxiety to begin with. And then as the game's unfolding and you're playing well and you've got to make big decisions here down the stretch, substitutions, all those kinds of things that you haven't done before, timeouts, all of it. Like, what's going through your head during all of this, Jake?
Just trying to be in the moment and stay present. We have a great staff here, and I think, we worked, reflecting back on the game, I thought we worked really well together. We talked in our staff meeting today just about, the communication, the dialogue that was happening was really beneficial just for me personally, but I think most importantly for our team. So I had gotten some great advice from some people I respect so much, including, Coach Holtman, leading up to the game about just being yourself and staying in the moment. And I tried to do that to the best of my ability.
Yeah, you have no lack of coaches in your life, right? You mentioned Chris Holtman. I do want to talk about him in just a minute, but obviously your dad is a very well-known and very successful high school coach. You worked for Bryce Drew, you worked for Homer Drew, you worked for Thad Matta, you worked for Chris Holtman. The list goes on and on of really impressive coaches that you've been around. How did you kind of orient yourself during the course of the week in terms of who you got advice from and how you balanced what they told you with kind of the advice that you said Chris gave you of just being yourself?
Yeah, it's there was a lot of information coming from a lot of people. And listen,
Yeah.
I've been fortunate to work for some high level, Hall of Fame level coaches. And I've always tried to, when working for those guys, I've always tried to take little things that they do so well and incorporate them into just how I coach even as an assistant. And listen, make no mistake, I'm a significantly better coach today than I was before I came to Ohio State to work for Coach Holtman. And I'm so thankful for how he mentored me, while he was here. But Homer Drew, playing for him, coaching for him, Bryce Drew, I think just has an unbelievable basketball mind. And Thad Matas was so good with his players, and I've just been really fortunate, and I think leaning on them was critical, but seemingly so, they all seem to have a very similar message of just be yourself and be the best version of yourself you can be. So I really held on to that.
What went through your mind when that last buzzer sounded there and you knew you had won the game?
I knelt down and said a quick prayer. I think that was just, I wanted to take that moment just to praise God, just, by myself there. And it didn't seem fully real at that time. And, as we went through the handshake line, I got somehow my wife and my dad and my mom and my best friend made their way onto the court, and I got to just give them all a hug. And in that moment, I think it became pretty emotional.
Take us through this week, because this week, as you said, wasn't easy. And we start with Chris Holtman, who you've already mentioned a couple times. To know Chris Holtman is to like Chris Holtman. He is a wonderful guy. I've obviously spent a great deal of time around him, have incredible respect for him. So you're kind of in this shocking situation here, Jake, where you find out that he got let go on Wednesday and that you're going to take over this program. Take us from that moment of the emotions you felt for Chris and his family, and then the task in front of you, and walk us up until game time.
Yeah, but immediately, and even really leading throughout the week until I was able to have another conversation with Coach Holtman, believe it was Friday night. He and his family weighed heavy on my heart, and I know how much he poured into this program and how much they sacrificed. So I certainly thought about that, but Gene Smith had been really helpful to me to just kind of, and really our staff. We had to focus on our players, and it's been all about them. It's still all about them, and my job right now is to support and serve them as best as I possibly can. So I've been tasked with that. I take that responsibility very seriously. Our staff takes that responsibility very seriously. But the days leading up, we quickly had a staff meeting, and then we had some administration meetings as they communicated with our staff and our players. Then we got to meet with our players. Then the next day, I scheduled individual meetings with every player. And the day it happened, I reached out to the parents, or at least one parent of our players. And then we got to practice, and we had a really good practice. I believe it was Thursday. Had another good practice Friday, and finished with a great day of prep on Saturday leading to the game. So that was kind of the breakdown of the days and events. But I was really impressed with how well we were able to practice, and we tweaked a few things. But I think it speaks to the leadership of our team and just the type of guys we have in our locker room.
What did you tweak?
We changed the pace and in kind of the urgency at which we operated practice with. You mentioned my dad. When I played for him in high school, we were known for playing some might call reckless, but very fast with a great deal of passion and intensity, and that fits who I am from the standpoint of operating with a sense of urgency. So we did that in practice. We upped the tempo, and our guys responded. I just was very open and honest with them before we started. I said, here's what we'd like to do. And the only reason we're doing this is not that, anything other than it just fits me and gives me a chance to be the best version of myself for them. We still had most of the same drills and a lot of things like that. So they were receptive to that. I think they enjoyed it. It was tiring at first. They got used to it there after a couple of days, but that was the biggest, I think, maybe just small tweak we've made up to this point.
As far as the game itself was concerned, so impressed with the job Zed Key did defensively on Zach Edey. What was kind of your message to Zed? It feels like he's gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit this year, maybe hasn't had the year that some thought he might. How did you get him to play the way that he did?
Yeah, when we had our individual meetings, Zed and I we talked openly about, him maybe not playing to the level he wanted to, and also, the level we want him to at times this season. And I just told him I felt this was a fresh start for him. And, there were some things that, he needed to do better. We talked openly about that. He had some thoughts on what those were, and we just held him accountable to those the next few practices. And he earned the right to play well. I think that's the biggest thing. He showed some growth in practice and some change. And, I was really, really happy for him to go out and play the way he did. And his steals on Edey, who's just, you forget almost how great of a player he is until you're in the game with him. You watch him on film and things. But for Zed to make those plays and guard him the way he did at times was really impressive and important for us.
Who was the most surprising person you heard from in the aftermath of all this, Jake?
That's a tough one. I don't mean to dodge your question, but it might take me some time to really process through the amounts of calls and text messages, and certainly since the game yesterday, it's grown even more. But I think the thing that became clear to me is that there are a lot of people that care about this program and the people within this program. And the thing that I think the thing that I enjoyed the most was the amount of former players who reached out. So I don't know if that was necessarily surprising, because here at Ohio State, we talk about this basketball family, this basketball fraternity, and it is real. And I've seen it firsthand because obviously my brother played here, and how close he is with the guys from that era. But for multiple eras and former players to reach out and just say, how proud they were of the way our team played, I think was really meaningful and important to me, and something that resonated at a high level. So sorry that wasn't, a direct answer to your question,
Yeah.
but I do think it's important to note, because that's something that even this morning when I woke up, I just thought was really special. And we care, about finishing this well, obviously for the guys in that locker room. And again, we're going to serve them our staff's going to serve them as best as we possibly can down the stretch. But we also know how important this program is to the people who came before us, and we want to make them proud as well.
Let me leave you with this, Jake. You head on the road now, Minnesota and Michigan State. We won't belabor the point, but we know the road has not been kind to the Buckeyes this year. How do you kind of harness this and carry it forward and take it on the road with you?
Listen, we need to do some things better on the road. There's no hiding from that. But I think the most important thing is we need to play like we've practiced and ultimately played, against Purdue. Now, will we make the same shots, or maybe we make a couple more mistakes? Certainly, there's so many variables in the game that could happen. But if we play as together as we did, and if we play as hard as we did, then we're going to give ourselves the best chance to win on the road. And it's Minnesota's a really good team. It's a fun environment to play in, and then certainly you follow that up with Michigan State and legendary coach, and big time home court advantage for them. So we understand that there's a tall task at hand this week, but our focus is going to be maintaining the same togetherness and toughness and effort that we had yesterday, and taking that on the road.
Well, Jake Diebler, congratulations on a huge win in your coaching debut. Really, really fun to watch that game yesterday and to watch those guys come together. Look forward to seeing what the rest of the year holds for the Buckeyes.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Go Bucks.